I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum!
Astro Radio Z is a horror, cult, exploitation film podcast by filmmakers, critics, musicians, journalists, and fans for the film obsessed. Here is your host, Derek Terry.
Hey, people out there in Astro Radio Z land. Thanks for tuning in for another one of Mark the Movie Man and myself's ventures and journeys into low-budget nonsense. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a Super 8mm cheapie called Gore-Met, the Zombie Chef from Hell, that was made in 1986. And last night, I queue this up on Rabbit, which is, if you guys aren't aware out there what Rabbit is, rabbit.it or rabb.it. It's a website in which you can, with friends, watch media. You could go onto YouTube, you can go into any website that you have that streams media. You can get together, you can listen to music and just have a chat. It's fun. Mark and I have been doing this now for what, like a year and a half for most of the movies. Yeah. And last night I got together with a friend and we watched this movie. And I got to tell you, this was a tough one. This was a real tough one. Like, I thought, and I want to start it out this way because I think sometimes when we do podcasts like this, we all tend to have to put on the expert cap when we go into movies. And this is the second time where I went into this movie because I'm going to, be blatantly honest here. I had never seen Gore-Met Zombie Chef from Hell ever before. This was a first time view for me. And I was always under the assumption this was a shot on video film. So that's why it got put up for Mark and I to do, because every month we're trying to do these shot on video movies. And here again, this is the second time. I think the first time was Darkness.
Yeah, Darkness was one. Yeah.
I was under the assumption that was also a shot on video film. Not. Again, we have a Super 8mm film that was posted digitally where they went in and put really bad digital credits on top of this thing. But we're watching this, and thankfully this movie's only an hour and 10 minutes long.
Yes.
Because holy crap, was this something else to sit and fucking watch. Mark, I'm sorry that, again, I choose a shot on video film that turns out to not be a shot on video film. I'm not an expert, but I'm just a big fan of low budget cinema. So yet again, I fucked up our shot on video month episode. So I apologize, Mark.
That don't worry about it. It's still, it still falls in that realm, even if it is just 8mm. It's still got a cover that is reminiscent of the shot on video stuff that went direct to video on the shelves. I mean, the cover of this movie is awesome. Oh, unfortunately, what transpires is a bit different.
That's putting it lightly.
At first I thought it was shot on video too, but then I watched it more. I'm like, you know what? I think this was shot on film, but that's okay. I don't mind the low budget is fine, whether or not it's shot on video or on film. I hadn't seen this one either, actually. It always was one of those where I'll watch it later. I always scroll by and go, it's a really cool cover. I'll watch it later. And
it's an awesome title. I mean, yeah. Gore-Met Zombie Chef from Hell. Of course you want to watch that movie. The cover, if you haven't seen it, Astro Zombies, the cover is basically a cutting board and somebody is with some wine and somebody's attempting to cook something or at least get the ingredients ready. And there's a severed rubber arm that's been chopped up by a cleaver on the cover.
With an eyeball.
Just arbitrary eyeball hanging out on this cutting board. But so, yeah, of course, if you had seen this big box VHS in a store, you would have picked this up instantly. Well, listeners, I never did. Which brings us to today. where we're going to sit and talk about yet again another bait and switch movie where you are promised a hell of a lot of gore and hijinks, and what you get is a lot of padding. This could be Gourmet Zombie Chef from Hell, aka The Paddening. How we normally start these episodes out is by giving our listeners a brief synopsis as to what the plot of our film is. And tonight, this may be tough because honestly, there's not much of a fucking plot to this thing.
Actually, IMDb has a great one-sentence summary that pretty much sums up this entire film.
Okay, Mark, I'll let you go for it.
A cannibal opens up a seafood restaurant and kills and cooks people to serve to his customers.
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
If you believe that that's actually what's going on in this movie, the vast majority of what's going on in this movie are people sitting around complaining about hair in their food, people singing entire songs on acoustic guitars while random people are way off in the background dancing in the dark. There's an entire sequence where this guy mixes a whole drink.
Yes.
A martini. He literally takes all of the ingredients, and in real time, we watch this guy mix this martini. There's scenes with finger powers. There's lots of scenes of people trying to get other people to look at their book collection. I mean, there's so much stuff that has nothing to do with a zombie chef. It's insane. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself here. As Mark had said, this is supposedly about a guy who in the grand old year of 1386 gets granted immortality by a bunch of priests in an ancient order. He's cursed by these priests. He can live forever, but he's cursed. The only way he can live forever is to consume human flesh every single day. And if he does not do that, he will begin to rot. So what does this guy do? Fast forward to 1986. Goza, the cursed chef, now is running a seafood restaurant in Delhi and just randomly picks people up off the street and decides to cut them up and feed them to his patrons. We don't really ever see him eat anything. He mostly just stands around with one horrible Hawaiian shirt and mildly thrust his hips to music.
Oh my God, the dance sequence. Oh dear God.
So as we had talked about before, that's it. Mark, I mean, when you watch this thing, let's go to general thoughts on this, because there's nothing really to break down in this movie. There's not much plot. It's one of these types of films like Herschel Gordon Lewis used to make, where you have a concept, and you mostly just set up a camera and just let it roll, and people just kind of do things in front of a camera. There's not much going on. So, Mark, what did you think of this?
I'm glad you brought up Herschel Gordon Lewis, because I'm watching this going, wow, this film really wants to be a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie. So I'm like, you could see bits of Blood Feast in here. You could see bits of even Gore Girls in here. You know, it's so wanted to, but it was missing the mark in many places, maybe because of budget or they didn't have the resources. Because like you said, you're promised gore, but what you really get for most of the film, when you do get body parts, it looks like someone robbed the Halloween store on bargain day, the day after Halloween, and just grabbed all the body parts they could and then got them wet. And then, threw them out on the floor, which props for using your budget. But when you get a movie with the title Gore Made Zombie, I mean, you're really expecting to see like some serious visceral, like entrails and cutting up things. And most of the time, the body parts we run across are ones in the dark from a quote unquote flashlight. And it's just a bunch of scenes, though. It's like a bunch of scenes stitched together for most of the film. And then like the last 10 or 15 minutes of this movie, it's like, oh, we got to get back to the story.
Yeah, there needs to be a plot all of a sudden. I guess we ran out of songs for us to sit and listen to in their entirety.
I enjoyed the songs, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, okay, I like the song and the performers were great. I'm just like, this is random, just like, this guy who apparently has powers to get people to go fetch him other people. They don't really establish it, but you kind of make the assumption. Anyway, he sends this one girl out to get her girlfriends who show up, and they just start randomly taking their clothes off.
The best scene of the entire movie. Let's get this out of the way. It's the most exciting scene because there's boobs and they dance around this is a thing that we need to establish, is that a lot of the reason this movie is so damn boring, because it's all shot in master shots, where it's all wide shots, where a camera's just sitting, there's one light, and there are people just doing things, and it's the most uninteresting way to shoot a film. In this entire sequence where these women are topless dancing with the Gore-Met, who's in his horrible Hawaiian shirt, doing the worst kind of dad dance hip thrust thing. It goes on for like 10 minutes, and this is the most exciting part of the movie.
My God, I didn't think there was a movie that would make the dance sequences and orgies of the dead look fantastic, but you actually have that in here. These and then during the whole sequence, it is the most interesting sequence because stuff's happening. You've got him like pushing him away and pushing him away and pushing him away. I'm like, dude, have you looked in the mirror? You've got some fairly attractive naked women coming up to you and you're like pushing them away. I'm like, dude, really? Come on, man. Until he drugs them. And then he's okay with them being near him. And then,
of course,
of course, because he just waits for them to pass out so they become on the lunch menu, which, this is one of those things where they establish, there's not a lot here. They establish, he's got to eat, flesh once a day to keep him from turning into, oatmeal man. But he like kills all of these ladies. So I'm like, dude, stock some in the freezer. You can't store some of that for later?
Obviously not. Obviously not. None of the people immediately within seconds are carved up into food, but that's done off screen. All of it's done off screen.
We did get one shot with one of the ladies who she's bare. She's laying on her belly. And he takes the Sawzall and cuts in quotes into her leg, which is the same shot used twice.
Yeah, they use this shot over and over again, and it's to say that it's unconvincing is giving it way too much credit. It's in most of the gore in this movie or any of the effects where it looks like somebody's actually cutting someone is nothing more than a knife or a plastic knife resting on somebody where somebody had put some blood on it and they mildly wiggle it back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is, it may sound like we're being a little harsh, but in this series, if you've been following us at all with some of the shot on video stuff, we have seen films done on a budget of this nature that have been able to put a little more effort into the gore, into the special effects, a little bit of an illusion. Although I will say, we get to a battle of force powers between Lozar and Goza, because Lozar apparently has the spirit of the priestess of their order who cursed Goza, and he's there to free Goza, or I'm not quite sure what was going on.
I think he was supposed to be going there in order to kill off Goza. And mind you, folks, this happens with 20 minutes left of the film in an information dump where two bearded dudes just spout off a bunch of nonsense out of nowhere for like 10 minutes. It's like the biggest exposition, like information dump in the middle of a movie where you're already fast asleep. Like your brain has checked out completely. And then all of a sudden in some park, Goza and Lozar are fucking talking about a bunch of arcane wizardry crap.
Well, the meeting's so random. That's the thing, is a lot of these things, there's no even slight setup to most of these scenes. It's just suddenly we got Goza on a bike and he just stops, get off the bike and goes, "I know you're here." And I'm like, Who's here? What are you doing on the bike? Why are you in this?
Yeah, there's no establisher. We don't know. We think he's just talking to himself, for Christ.
Well, because he was talking in the fourth, because he broke the fourth wall earlier in the film. So when he stops and starts talking again, I'm like, oh, you're talking to the audience again? Okay, we're doing this. And all of a sudden, no, some dude pops out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, you were talking to him this time. And then they do a force battle of raising their hand, and in a shot that I had to say I really did enjoy, because I was trying to find something to cling to. In this battle, Goza gets the upper hand by fooling Lozar, saying, "Yes, please make me mortal." And then he's like, "Freak, no." And so then there's this, he's choking Lozar with his force powers. And then we get close up on Lozar. And then all of a sudden we cut, and he's got this handful of stuff, which I'm thinking was meant to be dude's heart. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what it was supposed to be.
He takes it. And after he gives his final finishing line and Lozar dies, he just throws it onto the concrete.
Yeah, it's just like
it splats and it's like smiley face type.
I'm telling you, everything about this, none of it makes sense because the editing is atrocious. There are just things that just pop up on screen with, like, there was a scene earlier in their film where supposedly someone had gotten cut with a machete, but it just appears in their face.
Yeah.
Like the editing just makes your brain hurt. And then the scene you're talking about, these finger powers that are on display makes you long for the witchcraft films. Because this is, if you can imagine finger powers even cheaper than the worst witchcraft film, you got it. This is the only time in recorded history you're ever going to hear me say, I almost wish I was watching a witchcraft film instead of Gore-Met, the zombie chef from hell. Because that scene was like, oh, I'm like, you're not even fucking trying. It's like somebody gave you a bunch of extra film and said, you know what? You got to do something with this. Figure it out. You got 25 cents. Try and figure out a fucking movie. Good luck.
It really makes me wonder if they started out with just a concept and just made this up as they went along.
They had to have, Mark. There is literally no plot to this movie at all. You have the beginning where it's supposedly taking place in 1386.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yep, 1386 with the priests in some random field, a bunch of dudes in cloaks, and you don't see any of their faces because this thing looks like it was shot with a potato. And they curse this guy. Then we fast forward to this seafood restaurant where half of the runtime are people just complaining that the food sucks.
Yeah.
And intermixed with dance numbers and all this other nonsense. And then the last 20 minutes is where we get this information dump and wizards and finger powers, and then the gourmet chef gets killed.
And then librarian evil priestesses, whatever reason.
Who come in and just unceremoniously off Goza as he's attempting to gnaw on a rubber leg.
Although that was an interesting sequence as he's deteriorating, because again, I'm trying to figure out how many people does he need to eat in the day to sustain himself.
I think he just needs something, Mark. It was never established. I mean, he kept that. The only thing he kept around that entire seafood restaurant was a bag of rubber legs and rubber feet and rubber hands. Because every chance somebody walked in the back in the cooking area, they stumbled upon it, and these rubber legs flew out all over the floor.
Yes. But, they don't establish that. But I did kind of like that at the end when he flips over and tries to crawl for the foot to eat it. And suddenly you hear the sound of a nail gun, and she's sitting there nail gunning his feet to the floor.
Jesus, I was just like, I could not figure out, okay, wait, are immortal wizards that have to eat flesh, is their weak spot, like if this was a video game, their weak spot is the soles of their feet? How exactly is he dying from somebody shooting a nail gun into the sole of his feet?
Well, he was dying because he couldn't eat, because she held him.
Well, that's yes, but still, he didn't kick the bucket until she nailed him in the soles of his feet.
Yeah,
it's not like she shot him through the heart or through the head. No, just in his shoes.
Yeah.
And then he kicks the bucket, and that's the fucking end of the movie. And what ends up happening? She ends up inheriting his shitty Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
Along with the bar.
Well, it's supposed to be a deli, but I saw no deli whatsoever. I'm like, it's a bar. This is just a bar. What kind of where's the deli part? I'm like, where's the cabinets of food, of meat that you've prepared?
There's none. This is a bar that has a bar area and one table, because you never see anything more than people go to the same table, which I'm sure they filmed this on all of like 2 or 3 days. They just filed people in to sit and complain about hair in their beer and hair in their food. And then they would complain and run out, and somebody would off them unceremoniously off camera. I got nothing, Mark. I was walking into this episode, I was really scared, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, the characters you have in here as well. It was like, he's got his minion, his big guy, who apparently we learn later on through exposition, he doesn't actually eat meat. He just drinks the blood of people. So you've got this guy. You got a waitress in here who doesn't really like her job, and knows some weird stuff's going on, but she doesn't care. She's just getting the job. There's this woman who you think when you're introduced, she's also a waitress, but she's not. She's just sitting there oogling all the guys. And there's an attempt at humor in this scene that fails miserably.
You mean all of the humor?
Well, yeah.
Every shred of humor in this movie fails.
She's sitting there going, talking raunchy about guys, going, okay, and then when the guys come up to her, she tells them to fuck off, until the one guy comes up that she's interested in, and she asks if he was looking for groupies, and then he tells her to fuck off. And I'm like, this is supposed to be funny. I know this is, but later on, yeah, it has so much random. And the thing is, I'm looking at it through this whole thing and going, they really want to make an Herschel Gordon Lewis type film. They're really trying, but not getting there because there's no really substantial anything, it felt like, that was written here.
No, and I gotta say, Mark, I got a question to ask you. Do you feel in a lot of ways this is very reminiscent of Howling New Moon Rising?
Yes.
Where it feels like somebody had a location, they had a bunch of friends, and they decided, because maybe they owned this restaurant or owned this bar, they would just make a movie with all their frequent customers and friends and not really write a script. And then one day just decide to film a couple scenes that tried to tie something together. Because that's the way this feels. It feels like Howling New Moon Rising in a way where it's literally just a bunch of scenes of randomness tossed together with the barest minimum plot. I mean, it is mind numbing. And I know the friend that I was watching this with, she thought that this was actually kind of charming and kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, this is killing me. I've watched some real garbage, but this, and I think it's not necessarily even the plot that really bored me. It was the way this thing looks and the way that this thing is edited. It reminded me of the worst of Andy Milligan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think any listeners of my show that have been listening for a long time know that I have a real allergy to Andy Milligan films, in the way that the moment they come on, I fall asleep within 15 minutes.
Wow.
I cannot make it through his movies, not just because, I mean, the concepts are always bonkers and they're always way out there, but they're shot in such a boringly uninteresting way. And the sound is always so awful. And that is very much apparent here in Gore-Met, Zombie Chef from Hell, where the microphone is just set up next to wherever the camera is, and the camera is so far away from its subjects that you are just watching two people you can barely audibly hear talk about nothing for minutes at a time. And then it just randomly cuts to another scene of the same shit. This movie is like watching glaciers fuck. There is nothing going on in this thing. And like you said, fans of HGL are going to go into this and you'll see some of the trademark kind of traits of some of his movies. But imagine if it was even cheaper and there were no actual gore scenes. All you had were the leftover rubber feet that somebody put some blood on. It's weak as shit, dude. Weak as fucking shit. And it doesn't deserve that awesome cover that it has. I mean, holy crap. That cover is selling a movie that ain't fucking there. Ain't fucking there. And if I got to say, of all the movies we've done on this ultra low budget direct to video series that we've been doing, I can't say shot on video because this was obviously not shot on video. This has got to be the worst.
In your defense, Derek, even on IMDb, one of the tags for Gore-Met Zombie Chef from Hell is shot on video. It's actually one of the tags. So it's okay.
Thank you for making me feel better about all of this.
Mark. You're welcome. IMDb has it listed as with shot on video as one of the tags for looking it up. So you're good. You're not the only one who felt like it was shot on video. And the thing is, I can kind of see what their intentions were for this.
Yeah.
It's what you said though. It was And don't get me wrong, I have some friends of mine, Doc, namely, where he had access to a VHS camera, and at times we would just sit there and shoot shit, make shit up as we went along. But we didn't try to put it out to the public or anything because we knew what we had was just a bunch of random. And I bet for those involved in this film, it because they remember the setup or the scene or whatever, I'm sure for that group who made it, it probably means something for them. They probably enjoy it because they know the backstory and they were involved in it. And that's awesome. But this is one where you get it out to the masses and you see it and you're like, okay, I'm missing an awful lot, so possibly within their group, a lot more of it made sense to them or they understood, where it was coming from. But if you're outside of that group, you're like, this is like just a bunch of random scenes cut together. I mean, he breaks the fourth wall for no reason.
Out of fucking nowhere, he breaks. I'm like, I was sitting there going, is he talking to us? Yes. Is that really what's fucking happening right now?
You eat hooved animals. And it's like, why are you talking to us? And then you have the librarian character who comes in out of nowhere, who the one-armed guy who goes ate his arm, apparently, but he still likes hanging around. Immediately identifies her as a priestess. And I'm like, huh? And that's where it kind of got, okay, we're kind of getting interesting now. Okay, so she's kind of ID'd as a priestess. And then suddenly he thinks she's a priestess and invites her over for tea to look at his books. That's the old school way of Netflix and chill. And anyway, which
he constantly is attempting to get her to look at his book collection.
Right. Wink, wink. Look at my books. I was
afraid at that point that because we had just come off of the sequence where we watched him mix the whole martini, which went on for 5 fucking minutes, that then we were going to go into him book by book, showing her his book collection. I was frightened. I was genuinely frightened. I was going to have to sit and look at spines of books for 5 to 10 minutes.
Well, I was trying to figure out where this book collection is, because when he's making the martini, she sneaks off and she picks up, of course, the one book he tells her not to pick up. But I didn't see any other books in the area. There was just that book. I'm like, okay. And he didn't notice it was gone. It's just one of those things where we get this librarian who, when she's brought into it and they're talking about priestess, and I'm like, okay, here we go, the story, we're getting into it. And then we cut to a random scene where she invites the waitress, who doesn't know her from Adam, to the bench in some park saying, I do need the extra money. I see you're hiring someone. Like, wait, what? And they have this.
Okay. We need to talk about this sequence with the little dude that takes the help wanted sign, rips it off of the side of the building, stomps on it, and proceeds to go in and be a complete piece of shit to everyone in this fucking restaurant. It is literally, I know I had said the dance sequence was probably the most interesting, but this is a scene that I think they thought was going to be really funny, but it okay, it's really fucking funny because this little guy that comes in is the biggest asshole on the face of the fucking planet. He's telling this guy, you fucking idiot, I'm here for this job and I'm gonna take it. And the guy goes to go get Goza, and he's just sitting there drinking all their booze, pops himself up on the fucking bar, is calling this guy some of the most, well, let's just say this was a different time.
Yes.
So he was using some verbiage that wasn't necessarily okay in our society. And I'm going to play a clip of his interactions with the staff here so you guys can get a flavor of the only sequence that I actually laughed at in this entire movie. So let's take a second. Let's listen to this.
Excuse me, I'm here about the job. Excuse me, I'm here about the job. Excuse me, asshole. I'm here about the fucking job.
I'm sorry. I'll get the boss. He'll be here shortly. In a minute.
May I help you?
I saw your sign out front. I'm your man.
You're my what?
Your man. Your new cook. Your new short order cook. What does it pay? If you want the best, you have to come across with the jack. You'll also have to clean this stump up. I don't work with roaches. And another thing, the big faggot has got to go.
Blows off. We have a little problem out here.
Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. Blozo, get your fat ass out here.
Blows our old friend. He's harmless. Step on this little cockroach.
Come on, you big shit. Put me down or I'll tear your heart out. Hey, where are you taking me? What's going on?
So this fucking guy, I was just like, boy, this is an interesting interview technique that he has.
Yeah, I'm fucking good, and I'm going to tell you I'm not cheap, and you're going to pay me what I'm worth because
I'm your new short order cook.
He's a short guy. I'm like, oh wow. I'm like, he's the shortest guy in the movie, and he's the short order cook.
Yep. Bow, bow, bow.
You know, yeah, he's just an ass. I laughed too. I'm like, awesome. Okay, I this character, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, wait, what do they do? He's like around for like 3 minutes, and
yep. And they kill him,
and they kill him, and I'm like, but he was interesting. He was an actual character that I would have liked to see around more, but that's just like the horny girl, though. You know, I mean, they establish her as actually a character who's got some characteristics. You're like, okay, you know, she follows the one fiance guy because he's looking for his girl, and he found her ring in his burger, and that's not suspicious at all.
No,
you know, because she showed up at the bar earlier and became the menu lunch special, and then he's eating a burger with her ring. He's like, "Hey, her ring!" So he comes back with the horny girl. I call her that just because that's what you kept talking about. I mean,
nobody ever names themselves in this entire fucking movie, other than the wizards, other than the goofy ass wizards in fucking Hawaiian shirts.
And they go back later to Night is Day. Or day is night, whatever. They sneak in with this horrible flashlight. And I'm like, okay, here we go with something. You know, we're actually tied to these characters. We've actually spent a little time with the fiance guy. They set up some scenes where he was with his very, tall girlfriend. And, you know, they set up the girl who really likes all the guys. I'm like, okay, here we go. We got some characters and we got some, and they last for another like 4 minutes and then they're gone and done. And I'm like, come on. I would, I mean, it would have been, they have some characters here, but they don't stick around long enough.
They don't let anything build or anything tie itself into anything. This is a collection of random scenes that they filmed at this bar and then put it together with fucking scotch tape and toothpicks and then just barfed out into the world. This was nothing more than an exploitation exercise to try and capitalize on a burgeoning direct-to-video market. That's all this is. This was shot on Super 8 millimeter. This is as cheap as they come. This is literally a snoozer that I've seen people claim that they like this movie. You got me. There's nothing here. Even at 70 minutes, I mean, that's an hour and 10 minutes. This thing felt so long. So fucking long. So this is going to be a short episode tonight because I ain't got anything else to say about this. I do not recommend this movie. I thought it was a boring piece of shit. Looked like garbage. Sounded like garbage. Nothing happened in it other than that asshole little dude that came in and drank that bar's beer and booze completely. Nothing. I got nothing, Mark. What do you got to say to round this out?
There was an Apple II computer from 1979 in it. So there was that.
You're digging for anything. At that point, when you're noticing the props, you're digging for something to be interested in this movie.
Look, it's one of those films where, in all honesty, as we mentioned earlier, I honestly think a group of friends got together. Someone had access to a camera with film and they shot it for themselves. But you have the booming shot on video, direct to video market starting to expand and distributors hungry for material. So I honestly think this was shot just for the group and patrons of this bar. And then they saw that there was this need, or, you know, that they could actually possibly sell this for a little cash maybe. And so they put it together and sold it. You know, I actually think this was probably not necessarily meant for public consumption. I think it may have been meant for just their consumption, but with the market out there, they decided, hey, let's put it out there. And some distributor said, yeah, we'll buy it because we need something to fill a tape to get it on the shelf.
Yeah, just have to fill some shelf space. 1986.
You know, so, I think I can see a little bit of charm. I can see what they're trying to go for, but it's rough. It is a rough watch, even for this type of film, and namely because of, as we mentioned before, the way the box art is, the way the title is. This is something you're going into going, all right, it may be low budget, but we're going to see some shit here. And you do, but not the shit you want to see.
No.
And so, yeah, I couldn't really recommend this either. I mean, just look at the box cover for about an hour and you may enjoy it more. There are bits and pieces in here to enjoy, but there's so few and far between the rough spots that it really does not make it worth a watch. And that's tough to say with this stuff. I mean, I understand what they were trying to do maybe, but for this one, for the outsider of those who made the film, it's a rough watch.
Ugh. That is putting it so fucking lightly. So unbelievably lightly. So, Mark, I know we have a list of shot on video films to do every single month. And I think our next one on the docket is going to be Red Spirit Lake. We're going to be doing that next month, which I have heard from frequent guest and friend Andrew Shearer that this is a good one. So I'm looking forward to it because this will also be a first time watch for me. I have never seen this one. It's got to be better than Gore-Met. Holy balls, it's got to be better than Gore-Met. So that's what we're going to be watching next month. Now, folks, Mr. Daniel Edenfield has been working his little tush off so goddamn hard, watching all the shitty Walmart movies that he possibly could find. So here is another in our ongoing series of segments called Bottom Rack Films. Dan's back at it again. So take a listen.
Hello, it's me, Daniel, with another episode of The Bottom Rack, where basically I just bring you top shelf entertainment from the bottom shelf at Walmart or wherever I happen to find these movies. And I gotta tell you, man, lately I've been finding some gold on Amazon Prime. It's one of those that generally the only time I watch Amazon Prime is I'll find myself around the end of summertime, which is always me anyway, if I can, get a little personal here for a second, but around the end of the summertime, I'm always like, hey, let me just, find something spooky to watch. Halloween's coming up, but I'm usually like elbow deep into an album or something, so I don't want to make an investment. So I'll go to Amazon Prime because I remember they have a lot of documentaries, and I watch my paranormal documentaries and stuff. Well, lately I've been finding some movies on here, and I mean, Amazon Prime is basically like one gigantic digital bottom shelf that you would find at Walmart. And again, I mean, you take that sentence for what it is. I happen to love the bottom shelf at Walmart. I mean, the hell, it is what it is. I like it. So anyway, I found a good one today. And this right here is why I do what I do, because I'm banging my rickety table thing for emphasis, because I want to emphasize this, is that I found a really cool one, a cool movie. It's called The Judas Ghost. Now, this bad boy came out in 2013, and it's called The Judas Ghost. Yes, just like Judas Iscariot or like the Judas Goat, but this is called The Judas Ghost. The cover is cool as hell right off the bat. I mean, just go ahead and explain. I mean, it looks like a ripoff of The Exorcist, but I mean, it's even cooler. I mean, I'll go ahead and say it's even cooler. It looks like a freaking novel, like a dime store crappy novel that would be right up my alley. I mean, you got Judas Ghost in the font, which is at the top of the screen. The O is a damn inverted pentagram with another inverted pentagram inside that pentagram. So that's just saying, damn, Daniel, you should watch this. There's a creepy house in the background. Any fan or friend of mine in my work gonna know I love having haunted houses and locations on the covers. You got a wrought iron gate. It's obviously, it looks like a priest, just like the Exorcist cover. He's got the top hat and he's got the coat and he's holding a crucifix in one hand and a briefcase in the other. And they got some spooky little ravens or things on the cover. And it's just freaking cool. Okay. Here's the IMDb synopsis for Judas Goat. A team of professional ghost finders are trapped in an old village hall. The haunting they set out to investigate turns out to be far worse than they anticipated. Who will survive and what will be left of their souls? This is directed by Simon Pierce, and it was based on a novel by Simon R. Green, and that's who wrote the screenplay. There's nobody in there I recognize, and this is no insult to the actors. I don't really care. If you like the movie enough, you can look up the stuff on your own. What we have is an English film, and when I say English, yes, they speak of it, but I mean it's Brits. You have an English-styled film. It's kind of, forgive me for stumbling over this because I'm not a filmmaker, so I don't really know how to explain it, other than the fact that, you know how when you watch indie films and they have a really clean camera and then you'll hear them speaking with their English accent and you're like, oh, I know what kind of movie this is going to be. You know, it might have cheap gags. It might have some, less than stellar special effects, practical effects, but generally like the CGI is going to be top notch. Have you ever noticed that? Like, my friends from across the pond, when they do their special effects, their CGI is second to none. Their practical effects might be a little, a little bit to be desired, but their CGI is freaking awesome. But anyway, so this is one of those kind of movies. Okay. And that's not a bad thing. A group of paranormal investigators walk into a hall. They call it a hall. It looks like a little music hall or something. And again, it's kind of cultural differences. Not sure how to explain it, but yeah, it looks like a recital hall or something, like a gymnasium sort of thing. Small little arch ceiling, not a huge room, but you can see some chairs stacked in the corner. There's a piano in another corner. And wooden floors in the center with 3 large windows and some hanging lights from the ceiling. So anyway, they come in there and it's these team of paranormal researchers who are there to investigate some kind of haunting. Now, this is not found footage. This is not POV. This is third-person narrative. Now, every now and then, you might get some camera cuts or something, but for the most part, it's a third-person narrative. And it's just, there's so much story in this. I'm trying to find the proper way to explain it. They're investigating. They're in there. They're both investigating a haunt as well as supposedly quotey fingers here, trying to film like a training video because they're part of the Carnegie Institute. And these guys are among the best of their paranormal researchers. So they are there giving like a handy, guide for researching and stuff. And so the main character His name is Jerry, the main guy. The leader of the team is actually going through explaining what they do, you know, how they search for ghosts and the different types. And you have poltergeist, and then it'll do like a transition, like a flash sideways, like a Family Guy, you know, like how they'll flash sideways to another scene and stuff. And he's poltergeist and is showing this crazy cool scene, and then it'll flash back, and then he'll say, you know, or you've got an exorcism, and then it goes to a whole another scene with a little bit of humor, nothing distasteful, nothing bad, just there's some humor to it. But anyway, as the story progresses, this one location is the entire setting for the film. The people are trapped in this hall as they're trying to find the source of the haunting and the source of the paranormal activity. And they're just pulling things. This movie has things you would never expect it, and I love it. They have built so much in the world of this film that it just makes me want more. Once the shit starts happening and their doors are disappearing and the light outside just goes completely black. So there's just nothing but pure blackness outside of the windows, and there's no doors. Well, then the team, the leader, Jerry, he's like, all right, let's play it. I forget how he says, he's like, all right, boys and girls, it's time to do what we were trained to do or whatever. And all of a sudden he pulls out chalk, salt, holy water. They draw a circle, and he says something about when you don't have the fancy modern stuff, we have to go back old school or whatever. And they draw a damn circle ward in the floor with markings and runes on it. And they stand in the circle, and then they've got the holy water and stuff. And then as they're trying to figure out more about, you know, the story of what happened and why they're there, he even casts a spell. There is so much in this, and it's just so hard to explain. I'm telling you, man, just watch this freaking movie. It was so cool. It was so refreshing just to see a take on this. This is the kind of stuff that I love, is where it's just a small little location, but honestly, there is so much going beyond the actual story that it makes the story interesting. If you can follow what I'm saying. In other words, they're there to investigate a room, and that's fine. You figure something's going to happen. You know, you understand the resolution here. But there's so much that they use outside of the main story that keeps it interesting, like the fact that all of a sudden dude just busts out a spell and casts it, and it works. It's like, so there's magic. They have built into this world now. We now have magic with just the subtleties like that. That is what makes this interesting. And then you've got other things like the Carnacki Institute. They keep referring to their institute, and it's like, are they watching this? Did they know? They knew we were coming here, right? And it's like, yeah, well, then they're watching us, aren't they? So you have this whole, they have set up an institution, a paranormal research institution who knows about these things. I mean, it's like the Exorcist on steroids. It's just so freaking cool. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling about it and not giving this movie the justice that it deserves, other than the fact that I watched it. I loved it. You can find it on Amazon Prime. This movie is at a comfortable, cozy, 75 minutes. I mean, dude, 75 minutes. You get a full story, and it was enjoyable. So for an hour and 15 minutes that came out 2013, it's horror. There is blood in this. That's about it. It's just got some blood, some decent special effects. Again, it's a British film, so you're going to have some cool CGI, and actually the practical effects in this were really cool. Like, there wasn't any really bad gags or anything. Just ultimately, this movie was cool. I really do. I want to look more into this director, into this Mr. Simon Pierce, and maybe this production company, because I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It's called Judas Ghost. So anyway, yeah, that's been another episode. Another episode of me stumbling over my words. I feel really bad about trying to review this film. It's so cool. Judas Ghost. This has been the bottom rack, for top shelf entertainment. And we find on the bottom rack, bottom shelf. Hell, I forgot what I was going to say. Hell, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I will holler at y'all later, and take it easy.
I don't know how Dan does it. I don't know how he keeps doing this. He keeps watching these movies. I thought I had some problems. But then there's Dan Edenfield. He loves those shitty movies just as much as I do, and got to thank him for it. So anyways, thanks for listening to another episode of Astro Radio Z. I know this was a short one, but when you go into watching a movie and it's a pile of fucking nothing, what are we going to talk about? I don't know, Mark. I think we exhausted that movie. There's nothing more to talk about.
I think we talked about it and more than the movie, and gave it more thought than those who made the movie. In all honesty.
Ridiculous.
Although
ridiculous.
those dancers, here's a large surprise. I know you're going to be surprised, Derek. I read up some trivia.
No, I already know what you're going to say because I read the IMDb as well.
You did.
But I'll let you say it. Yes.
They couldn't find an actress who would do topless. So they had to go to the local strip club to get a couple strippers to do the topless scene.
That's where all the budget went, folks.
That's where all their money went.
Yep. That's it. So anyways, enough with Gore-Met. I've had enough. Guys, don't ever go fucking watch Gore-Met. Just look at that back cover and bask in its glory. But anyways, this is the portion of the show where my guest shamelessly shows the fuck out of you, Mr. Mark, the movie man. Go for it.
You can hop on over to specialmarkproductions.com where you've got a link to my YouTube channel. You can also find me on the Twitters at Special Mark Pro. I'm also on the Instagram, Special Mark Prod. We got a Facebook group as well. Links to all of that is on the specialmarkproductions.com, and as well as my podcast, where the fantastic Derek Carey was kind enough to come on our show recently and talk some Black Panther. So drift on over there if you want to hear some more sweet, sweet pipes of Mr. Derek Carey as we talk some comic book films as well. So check it out. And Derek, as always, this is a pleasure, and I am still enjoying this journey you're taking me on, because this is all stuff that I walked past as a kid on the video shelf, and now I'm getting to come back and actually watch this stuff. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about what we got coming up next. So,
oh boy, we got a lot more shot on video nonsense. Next one will be shot on video. I guarantee that one. Guarantee it. So anyways, folks, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
You can find Astro Radio Z on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, YouTube, and anywhere podcasts are found. Please help us by subscribing, rating the show, and giving us a review. It helps us get the show out to more listeners. Also, if you would like to hear more of the show and be a more active participant, join the Astro Radio Z Facebook group and page, and join the Patreon. For only $1 a month, you get bonus episodes. Thank you for listening. See you next week, Astro Zombies.